Welcome back to another roundtable. My name is Adam. With me once again, I have Victor.
Hi, everyone.
And today we have two very special guests from UOB. So once again, welcome back. This is John Lau. He's the Executive Director and Head of Treasury and Sustainability Lead from UOB. And alongside him is Jonathan Conley.
Hey guys.
He's First Vice President and Fixed Income Product Manager. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Yeah, so they were here at a previous roundtable. We were talking about investing in ESG solutions, sustainable investing and all like that. Do check it out. It was a really interesting discussion and how basically ESG is where the future is, where the capital is flowing,
Where the trend is going.
where the growth is going to come from. And I think it's an important thing, consideration when it comes to investing. So at this roundtable, we're going to talk a bit more about ESG and, the red flags that you want to look out for. Okay, because when it comes to ESG, a lot of companies can claim that they practice ESG, but how do we actually know? So this is what this entire roundtable is about, because you do want to invest in companies that really do practice it, because that's where you feel that the future is going to be, where the returns are going to come from. So I think a lot of this is going to be about greenwashing, how companies kind of like hide certain things. And I think it'll be pretty interesting, some interesting stories you're going to hear from the both of you today as well. So before we begin, maybe just a very quick introduction for those who don't already know you, what you do at UOB.
Sure. So I run the treasury business for wealth management division and also head up the sustainability agenda for the consumer bank in UOB.
All right.
Yeah, and similar to John, I work within the wealth management division, but I look after our fixed income business, as well as supporting John on our sustainability efforts and our sustainability program.
All right. So I think let's dive right into the topic. So greenwashing. Can you tell us a bit more about what is greenwashing? What's the definition of that?
Yeah, it's quite an interesting conversation because I think a lot of the times there's misconception about the whole industry and where the risks really reside. But before we get into that proper definition of what greenwashing is, I thought maybe it'd be interesting to tell you a little story, right? Where did greenwashing actually come from? Well, it actually came from an environmentalist named Jay Westervelt in 1986 on a trip to Fiji. 3 years before he coined the term greenwashing on that trip to Fiji, he essentially was at a hotel. And in this hotel, he was very interested in, this new campaign, this fabulous idea that the hotel had, which was called Help Us, Help the Environment. And this is really about protecting coral, protecting the ocean. And how were they doing this? Well, making you reuse your towel. Okay. Not too much of a surprise what we're seeing still today in a lot of the hotels, not only here in Singapore, but around the world, right? But what was interesting about this, at the same time they were running this campaign, they were actually expanding their operations, building new bungalows, new hotel facilities down the beach without any regard for the environment whatsoever. So despite them claiming that they were actually, helping the environment through this Help Us, Help the Environment initiative, they're actually spoiling the environment by building along the beach and destroying the coral. So that kind of takes us to what this definition of greenwashing actually is. It's misleading marketing. Yep. It's marketing efforts. It's really a drive to try and lure your hard-earned capital in, your investment dollars in to a company that's claiming to do good. But at the same time, they're actually not doing anything for the environment at all. So this is kind of how greenwashing came about and what greenwashing actually is still today.
Yep.
Okay, so I think one example I can give for myself is like you go to the supermarket and then you see all this organic produce that's on the shelves and everything, and you go like, oh, I want to buy organic because it's healthier, it's better for the environment. But I've read that there's no real definition of what organic really is. There's no standard for that. So is that an example of something of an industry where, I guess businesses can claim that they're organic, my eggs are organic, my vegetables are organic, but you don't really know. Is that something similar, right?
I think it's very real because sustainability has become such an important agenda, right? Where a lot of people would then realize that it is actually a big marketing and commercialization opportunity as well. So unless you really take a trip down to a certain farm to really validate the entire process, on how eggs are being produced, I think it's hard for lay consumer, right, to be able to validate. So, which is why I think choosing who you wish to procure sustainable solutions, right? Or of any kind, right? We're not just talking about investment. It can be a vehicle. It can be, a glass, a tumbler. Becomes important because you want to actually find an institution, right, that has a holistic and coherent sustainability program. Just quoting what Jonathan was mentioning, right? What that hotel did was a classic example of incoherent, right? On one aspect, it shows one, but in totality, it is not exactly practicing. So how do you then find a whole company that can really give you the whole food that your whole body deserves, right? That would be important.
So does this consider greenwashing if some company maybe come to Singapore, raise capital for green initiative, right? But they go back to their country, the capital, and they just do something else?
Yeah, these are definitely red flags that you want to be looking out for when it comes to greenwashing. I'm a little bit more on the investment side, of course, but on the consumer side, not too dissimilar, right? So sometimes what you might see is a particular financial solution that you could be investing in, maybe investing in that company. And that particular company may be operating, let's say, a very sustainable practice here in Singapore, but taking advantage of lax labor laws or lax environmental laws in another country. And because of this cohesiveness today of international regulation and international standards pertaining to how marketing is done around sustainability, sometimes you can fall into this trap, right?
Okay.
And there is a lot of pitfalls that can come about because of this, whether it's investor apathy starts to basically wane around environmental issues or social issues or even governance issues, or direct financial implication on that company going bust, right? So when we look at this as investors, we do need to be aware that these risks are out there and we need to be on top of them in order to make sure that we're not falling into that greenwashing trap.
So I got another question I want to ask from investor point of view. Okay, so let's say, example, I were to invest in this company is that so-called ESG, right? But this company is caught of greenwashing, right? In the event, if they are caught of greenwashing, do they run out of capital? Because I'm concerned about this is because if I were to invest in that company and they run out of capital, that's going to affect my returns.
Of
right?
course, of course. I think the implications is very real, which is why you see regulators around the world, right, are actually implementing common taxonomy or standards, right, to actually measure sustainability, environmental factor, for example. So a lot of these companies actually raise fund through investment mandates that are sustainable, right? So be it you borrow money from a bank, or be it you raise fund through private equity, asset managers, all the same, right? So they would go through annual due diligence process, audit, etc., to make sure that the company delivers what they promise. So, for example, if you are raising money to actually build, wind farms, but end up you take that money to do more coal mining and only build one, one farm, and then that wouldn't cut it, right? So that's where you would be punished, right? Capital would get withdrawn, and then beyond that, I think there will be a lot of media pressure, etc. They'll come after this particular company. So its entire ecosystem, everybody is sort of watching and helping to safeguard the standards.
So my next question is actually, so how do I avoid all this greenwashing?
How do you do it? So I mean, so when you look at the marketing nowadays, like you mentioned, that everyone's being sustainable, it's organic, it's, I don't know, recycle. I mean, recycling is another one. Like a lot of things, a lot of products say it's recyclable, but it's actually pretty hard to recycle as well. So how do you go about as a consumer? Because I mean, you guys, I think you're experts in this area. But as a consumer, I wouldn't know. I trust the label, right? And most people would do that. How do you tell the difference?
It's a great question. I think this can actually be broken down into two parts, right? Okay. First is looking at it as a consumer, because a consumer versus an investor can be two very different things, right? So as a consumer, there's lots of different international recognized certifications for various types of products, whether they're eco-friendly products or sustainable products. There's a lot of various websites, there's a lot of various institutions that you can go to actually check the entire life cycle of the product that you're purchasing, whether it's in the textile industry or in the food and beverage industry or in the automotive industry. There's lots of different ways to verify the process that this company has gone through to produce that particular product or service. When it comes to financial services, it's a little bit different, right? Because now you kind of have two layers of information that you're trying to decipher. One, the product of that particular service that you're investing in, and that product that it's investing in, and then the product itself, right? Because at the end of the day, when we look at a solution, it's built up possibly of many different types of investments, many different companies, right? And now we're putting our faith as an investor into the hands of that institution that's actually managing the money for us, right? So when we look at that, we need to look at it twofold. One, the certification of the various products as consumers, the stuff that we're looking at in terms of their marketing message. And then two, when we put our capital to work, how is it being monitored? How is it being invested, and how is it being diversified across these different types of solutions? So I think these are two very important things to note as an investor.
All right. So that is kind of like the framework that UOB uses for discerning whether something is a sustainable industry or company. Is that like a standard framework that you guys use?
Yeah, I think over the past few years, what we have been really trying is to work with partners, and these are third-party ESG providers, right? They can either, number one, help us curate or jointly build a framework or eligibility guide, right, to make sure that the solutions that we bring forward to our customer is indeed meeting certain sustainability standards, number one. Number two, they also help us a lot when it comes to the ESG data, because you can only manage what you can measure. And trust me, data standardization and availability has actually been one of the biggest obstacle, right, that us as practitioner need when it comes to preparing and doing our due diligence work. So combining that two factor, indeed, these are the two key fundamental pillars, right, that actually supports our sustainability framework that cuts across investments and our lending solutions, for example.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So when you go through the framework, I'm going out on a limb here and asking you guys, are there any, going through the framework in your experience in your work, have you come across any really interesting stories when applying the framework and you go, hey, this doesn't really make sense?
Yeah, I mean, quoting one example, right, I think is that when we looked at curating our, for example, our EV program, right, as well as hybrid vehicle program, we do have a certain aspiration. For example, EV is obviously the primary choice, but if it's not EV, then maybe certain hybrid vehicle, would be able to also be part of the program. But by consulting a third party, very credible ESG consultant, they actually give a benchmark, and that benchmark is so stringent that it's very hard to find hybrid vehicles that are that is actually meeting those criteria. So this is where you do really see that as a business we sometimes need to make a hard choice between standard and commercialization. But connecting back to our first chat, the technology will catch up eventually, right? So I think while that's why having a framework is important, the technology and the availability and the commercialization would come later, but we just have to ensure that we hold true to the standard. Yes.
So UOB have the framework, to fact checks on companies that whether they have the ESG. So do you guys get audited by someone to make sure that UOB itself also continue to maintain the framework on your own company?
Yeah, that's a great question.
So in fact, some of our programs, we do actually employ third party to actually come and look at the implementation of our framework, to then make sure that this is what we have agreed, right, to say that you can put solution ABC based on this framework. So an audit process can actually happen as well, to then look at indeed are we practicing what we're preaching, right? So I think this is an important element to then give assurance to our customers, right, on how serious is our own due diligence process.
All right, so I think we've covered a bit. Quite a bit about environmental stuff when it comes to ESG, because I think that's what most people are familiar with. But I think that's just for greenwashing. But what other aspects? What other red flags when it comes to ESG and in the ESG framework that you look out for as well? These are red flags that you need to be aware of.
Yeah, I think, again, a very good question. Lots of good questions today, Adam. So when it comes to other red flags in the ESG investing universe, again, like we mentioned in the previous podcast, a lot of misconceptions is that ESG is all environmental.
Yep.
But social and governance aspects make up a big chunk of this. And we'll focus first on social. So social being a little bit less well-defined, where you can really try to identify where there could be pitfalls in a particular investment that you're looking at, whether it's a solution and or an individual company, is first starting with their labor practices. Looking at things like how are they operating in terms of slave labor, child labor. These are all things that you want to identify. They may be operating clean in one country with regards to their labor practices, but taking advantage of lax labor practices in another country. One of the other things you want to look at in terms of social is possibly looking at how wage is being distributed amongst their population and their staff, right? Are there equal opportunity? Is there equal wage? These are all very important factors from the social side. The other thing about social is because it's probably now the quickest and most unique in terms of the various types of factors that investors are looking at now, is generally just some of these new trends that we're seeing, right? Around social justice. Everybody has a cause. And because everybody has a cause, this is now having direct implications on how governments are associating policy from the top down, from a macro perspective, right? As well as how companies are employing these practices from the bottom up. So this can be widespread. We can probably have a full podcast on this, but these are generally some of the more social factors that we'd be looking at in terms of red flags. Governance has been born and bred in investing, since day one. Yeah. But where we tend to see a lot of governance happening now is around money laundering, right? Yep. And how do we identify this? Some of the biggest blow-ups in history have been around lax governance. Where do we start? I mean, we could again have a full podcast on this, but it typically starts with the board and then the company management. Beyond that, it also is how the board and the company management are implementing strategy through to their shareholders and then down to society. Yep. So again, governance, even though it's been here since day one, the way it's evolving today is actually having direct implications on the other two pillars, which is the E and the S, right? Yeah. So this is kind of what we're seeing now. So looking out for things like, is board compensation aligned to shareholder and societal goals, right? Are you seeing a lot of turnover on the board? Are you seeing a lot of turnover in management? These can potentially all be red flags that could lead you to uncovering something like, some of these major blowups we've seen in history, right? So these are kind of a few examples of red flags that we look at, but very important ones to consider.
So I think to add on to that, I think looking at how the senior composition of the company becomes important. So do you even have a chief sustainability officer? Do you have a sustainability committee that is accountable back to the board, right? What is the tone from the top, for example, right? And do you have a sustainability report published annually, etc.? Right. So I think these are important signs that people need to look out when they are investing or even consuming any sustainable solutions.
All right. So I think as an investor, there really is a lot of homework to be done. There's a lot of research and analysis. So it takes some time. I think we've covered. I mean, governance is something that we do a lot when it comes to analysis, because I think, like you said, is from day one. Investing is about governance, because investing in a company is investing with the people managing that company. And now we have other aspects of this management, which is, like you said, the E and the S as well. So, I mean, are there any resources that people watching this can find out more about sustainability and from UOB and what they can learn about it?
Yeah, I think. Take a look at our sustainable investing website. Okay. I think that basically would give you some idea in terms of how we integrate sustainability into our wealth management advisory approach, right? It also talk a little bit about how we collaborate with certain sustainability partners to then curate the right sustainable advisory and solutions that we bring forth to our customers. So, that I think would be a good resource. But I think most importantly is finding an institution that is coherent. Right, that aligns with you as an individual from a value perspective and can help you express that.
Yeah. So if I want to look to invest in any sustainability or look into some sustainability products and all this, right? So can I just go and look at any the financial advisor at the UOB, or do they provide all those sustainability?
Sure.
Yeah.
So all our colleagues in the consumer bank in Singapore have gone through a fundamental sustainability training. I think this was completed early this year, and why we did that, because it is our aspiration to make sure that no matter what is your function, be it you are advising client, or you are actually processing transaction, or you are actually curating solutions, we hope to have a baseline understanding on sustainability as a whole, and how we as employees and colleagues can play a part. And we are also putting forth a third-party curated certification, right, for all our client-facing colleagues as well, because we believe that we need to be the trusted advisor, right, advising client in everything that matters. So I think this is an important commitment that we've put forth to make sure that the advisory investment and capability is there for our customer.
Right. And then having that advisor by your side goes beyond just your journey through sustainable investing, right? I mean, it also helps to align to your risk goals, what it is that you're actually looking to do with your hard-earned money, the capital at the end of that investment lifeline, whether it's going to be for legacy, whether it's going to be for charity, or whether it's to fund, a value that you might have. Having that trusted advisor alongside of you is going to help along this pitfall of greenwashing traps, window dressing traps, governance traps, because at the end of the day, investing is a journey, and we can't always do it by ourselves, right? So again, having that advisor by your side is going to just give you that leg up in understanding what you're getting yourself into with sustainable investing.
Hence accreditation, right? Look for companies, right, that has been accredited. Not to say anything, but awards sometimes I think is a good indicator, right? Sustainability awards in different aspects, and from an institution, from a business perspective, that's also a good yardstick. If they are actually accredited by the right and reputable organization, then that's also one sign you can look out for as well.
All right. So investing is a journey, but it is a minefield sometimes as well.
That's right.
A lot of things to look out for. So I think if you're interested in sustainable investing and what UOB can offer you as well, do check out the UOB Sustainable Investing website. The link is in the description. And I think this is a pretty good discussion on, I think, a follow-up on the ESG topic that we had the previous time. And about this time is about greenwashing and what you need to look out for, the red flags as well. So thank you so much for being here and telling us everything that you know.
Pleasure is ours.
All right.
Again, always great to join you guys, and appreciate the time.
It's been a lot of fun. So once again, my name is Adam. That is Victor.
Thank you.
This is John Lau. He's the Executive Director, Head of Treasury, Sustainability Lead at UOB. And this is Jonathan Conley, First Vice President and Fixed Income Product Manager. Thank you so much for being here and sharing everything that you know about ESG. It's been a pleasure. All right. So
thank you so much.
Thank you for being here. So once again, if you like this roundtable, please hit the like button. Tell us we're doing a great job. Any questions about ESG or greenwashing, put them in the comment section. We'll be happy to answer them. Of course, subscribe to our channel. Many more roundtables coming up, and we'll love to see you. And of course, do check out UOB's Sustainable Investing website. The link is in the description. So thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you around again.